Wake up. It's the Sleep Unplugged podcast, episode 167, Frequent Nighttime Urination, all through the night. Welcome, everyone, to the Sleep Unplugged podcast. My name is Chris Winter. I'm a neurologist, sleep specialist, and your host for this episode of the podcast. If you're new to the Sleep Unplugged podcast family, welcome. If you're a veteran, welcome back. We're glad you're here. Big news from Sleep Unplugged Nation. We have hit 300,000 downloads, and I want to start today's show off thanking everyone for the support. And 300,000 means not only are you supporting it, but you're telling people about it, you're listening, you're spreading the word. We don't advertise the podcast really. We don't pay any money to do that kind of thing. So everything is organic and homegrown. We started this podcast 3 years ago and word of mouth, and here we are 300,000 downloads later. So I'm really excited about that and happy to be spreading good information about sleep and having some fun while we go along. If you are interested in communicating with the show, you can. We have our YouTube page where you can find all the video content of our podcast. We are easily communicatable through social media. Dr. Chris Winter Instagram, Dr. Chris Winter Twitter X. We Dr. Chris Winter Threads, Bluesky, lots of ways to get in touch with the podcast. If you have a comment, correction, criticism, you can use those platforms to do it. You can even send a message through YouTube. We generally start the show off with comments, corrections, criticisms, and we have a couple here. Let's see here. One was a comment we had through the YouTube page. It was from, let's see here. Um, where was it? Oh, here we go. This was a comment through from like Cal Thompson, who wrote, please try to stay on topic. You're just all over the place. Get to it and discuss the topic. Well, I appreciate that, Cal or Cat or whatever your name is. Yeah, we tend to not do that on this podcast. So we have certain things we're going to hit. We try to get those things as quickly as possible. And I suggest that you either find a different podcast that's more direct and to the point and to your liking, or you get familiar with the fast forward button where you can, fast forward 6 or 7 minutes and get to the meat and potatoes of the show. We had another comment that was perhaps a bit more constructive from Jeremy, who wrote, do you have any material on fragmented sleep from getting up, quote, or I'm sorry, in parentheses, many times, end quote, to pee during the night? Perhaps one of your blogs or an article you have written. Well, here we go, Jeremy. This podcast is directly for you. I was looking back through our episodes and I thought, yeah, I do. I was going to send him the link to this podcast and realized we did one on enuresis and bedwetting, but we didn't do one on the urge to go to the bathroom during the night, which to me is a completely separate thing. So, Jeremy, this one is for you. We always talk about a musical guest on the show, and this podcast is no exception. Really excited to feature this podcast, who is Cyndi Lauper. And the song is All Through the Night, which I believe was either the fourth or fifth. I think it was the fourth single off of her debut album, She's So Unusual, which was an absolute blockbuster of an album. It was one that I had growing up. You couldn't escape it, so I listened to it a lot. But this is an album and an artist that, at least for me, as I've gotten older, I've gotten more interested in, and frankly, more in awe of her talent and voice. And let's be real, her longevity. She's still going. She's really incredible. And this was a big song for her. The song actually All Through the Night was not written by her. It was written by a woman named Jules Shear. But Cyndi Lauper made it a top five hit. In fact, Cyndi Lauper was the first woman to ever have four top five singles from a debut album. She had so many singles off this album that there's actually no music video for All Through the Night, which was very unusual for a song in the 80s to not have an accompanying music video. In fact, I was watching that great documentary on Devo, who we talked about a couple episodes before. They were really on the forefront of the video to accompany the music, which I was really fascinated by. There's a great video of David Bowie introducing Devo in a concert, and that video content was really big for them. So for her not to have this video was kind of unusual. So this was a huge album. It did win, she did win Best New Artist in the 83 Grammys, as well as Best Recording Package Artwork. I mean, it's a fantastic picture on the cover. You can close your eyes. Can't you picture the cover of Girls Wanna Have Fun? It's an Anne Leibovitz photograph. She lost out pretty intensely that year to Tina Turner. I think that's when Private Dancer came out. So, but she did win Best New Artist. Over 7 million copies sold in the US, 16 million worldwide. It's always on Rolling Stones top albums of all time. So we'll put All Through the Night on our Spotify music playlist, Volume 4, and excited to celebrate Cyndi Lauper in doing so. So let's get into it. This is a really fun topic for me because it's absolutely a topic we deal with a lot. And I just wanted to mention too, this is the first Monday of the month, so it's an Insomnia Monday. And to me, this is a big reason why older individuals typically come to the clinic struggling with sleep. They will say things like, I'm struggling to sleep because I have to wake up so many times to go to the bathroom. And before we get going, if you're watching on YouTube, I am wearing my navy sweatshirt for two reasons. Number one, I gave a lecture this week down in Sandestin, Florida, and talked to a lot of the sleep medical folks down there taking care of that community, and really wanted to say hello and salute them for all they did. Everybody in the room who was working had some military affiliation. I talked to a PA who was in the military, and her husband's in the military, and they're getting ready to head up to Washington, D.C. And everyone was just so kind and welcoming. We had a really good time. And then I went from there to Pensacola. We got to spend some time with my son and see what he was doing in terms of his process of becoming a naval pilot. So I'll throw up the old Navy sweatshirt in honor of that. So going back to Insomnia Monday, this is a big cause. And the first thing I kind of wanted to point out with this is a lot of people come to the clinic and say, I'm struggling to sleep because I'm waking up to go to the bathroom. So, what they're typically saying is there is a process going on in their mind that they feel the urge to urinate is what's waking them up. So, it's I fell asleep, something happened, I had to pee. The urge to pee woke me up. I went to the bathroom, went back to bed. So, they're kind of blaming the urge to urinate in terms of waking them up to go to the bathroom. And again, nocturia is the medical term for this. From Latin meaning night. Uria is Greek for urine. So night urine is essentially what nocturia is. And there have been several studies that really show that most individuals, unless you've got some severe, urological problems, it's you're waking up and then you're feeling the urge to some degree to urinate. In fact, there was a 2006 Pressman study entitled Nocturia, a rarely recognized symptom of sleep disordered breathing, that found that patients with sleep apnea often preceded the sensation of needing to urinate. So it's the apnea that wakes you up. you've got a bit of a sympathetic arousal. Imagine you're in bed and your airway collapses. And so what happens? Your airway collapses. You're struggling to breathe, your carbon dioxide is rising, your oxygen levels going down, and boom, you wake up to catch your breath. Well, you can imagine the sympathetic nervous system explosion that happens at that point because just a few seconds ago you were suffocating. And so when we get big sympathetic arousals, we often have the urge to urinate. I think we've talked about that before. You go to the bathroom and then you get ready to take a big test. Or I remember for me, it was always go to the bathroom in the little porta potty and then get lined up to start the triathlon race. And as soon as they say, okay, guys, great to see everybody out here, shoot the fire and you go run, I would always be like, oh my gosh, I've got to go to the bathroom right away. Like right at the beginning of the race, I would think to myself, I've got to go to the bathroom. Now, if it was a triathlon, I'm swimming in a lake and I'll let you fill in the gaps as to what happened right there. But again, that urge to urinate can be really strong when we have these sympathetic arousals, fear, excitement, anxiety, and suffocating can be a really, really big cause of that. So, that idea that you are suffocating because I'm sorry, you were waking up to go to the bathroom because of the urination is generally not the situation there at all. So here it is, 3 a.m., you're awake, heading to the bathroom, blaming the bladder. What else is probably going on? So about 50% of adults over 50 struggle with nocturia in some form or another. So I think it's important to sort of point out this is not just an old person's problem. Studies show that 10 to 15% of people in that 20 to 50-year-old range 20, 30 have to go to the bathroom, 20 to 30% in that 50 to 70% range. So these are big numbers and upwards of, as high as 50% when you get above 70. Have to go to the bathroom at least twice a night. Nocturia does become more common with age, and more than 50% of men and women over the age of 60 have been measured to have nocturia in many communities, and it seems to affect both sexes about the same. And it really underscores that sleep disruptive idea for these individuals that it's not just inconvenient, but it's fragmenting sleep. And it's creating opportunities for individuals to have to go to the bathroom and have to go to the bathroom and then try to go back to sleep. And if you fight it, it kind of makes it even worse, meaning you wake up and you could just kind of roll over, but there's that feeling like I've got a little bit. I mean, I probably can go back to sleep, but I wish I didn't have that feeling of bladder fullness and you're like, oh, screw it. Now you're getting up, walking around, looking for the light, turning on the light, going into the bathroom, cold tile on your feet, whatever's going on, and you turn flush and you turn the light out and get a little sip of water before you go back to sleep. And now you're awake. So my tip for patients when they go to the bathroom is the dimmest light possible. In fact, I think everybody should have, when you go to the movie, there's that tiny, it's almost like Christmas lighting on the ground that allows you to see the aisle. So if in the middle of the movie, you got to get up and go to the bathroom, you can find your footing without, bright lights interfering with the enjoyment of the movie. I think everybody needs that sort of runway into their bathroom so they can go to sleep at night. So let's define nocturia. What's normal? What is abnormal? And there was a study. This was a study. It's Karen Brock, the standardization of terminology nocturia report from the standardization subcommittee of the ICS. This was in neurourological journal from 2002, where they're defining nocturia as waking in the night to void, but acknowledge one episode of voiding at night can be physiological in many adults, especially in older adults. In other words, once per night can be totally normal, especially as we get a little bit older. Two or more times tends to be linked with less quality sleep. And this was from a 2004 Asplin study that said, the higher the number of issues, the more sleep fragmentation, the more, problematic it can be related to your sleep. So, to me, this gets into a lot of, what is normal, what is abnormal. Well, sure, one's normal. I think in the culture we live in today, where we're hydrating so aggressively, I'm not sure one is. I think I could get behind two perhaps being even normal, especially when you start thinking about like elite athletes, NBA preseason's right around the corner. I've been talking to some teams about, certain things, and I think about NBA athletes a lot because they pretty aggressively hydrate, before the game, during the game, after the game. They get in bed, they go to sleep. They wake up a lot to go to the bathroom during the night. I've never considered that to be abnormal. What's the alternative? Don't hydrate? I think that's crazy. Did y'all see that article? There was an article in maybe the Washington Post, New York Times, where foreign countries, especially like Europe, think Americans. It was a study. It was the title was "What Europeans Think About Americans When They Travel." I mean, my first thought was, are we loud? Are we entitled? Well, no, it was that we drink a lot of water and that Europeans find our fascination with water really interesting. They think it's strange. In fact, their governing bodies don't recommend as much water to them as we do. And so it consequently becomes kind of strange because we're trying to hydrate all the time and we struggle to find water in these countries. I just got back from Copenhagen and looking around for bottled, canned, ideally glass bottle, anything you got, water was difficult. So I don't travel with a water container. I try to travel very lightly. So yeah, I am looking around for sources of water that, not just filling a water bottle. And it was kind of hard to find water. You could find drinks, but not water. And they kind of think, it's not great to go out to a nice dinner and just drink water, that you should have a more elevated beverage. But anyway, so, the water thing in this country, I think alone could account for a lot of nocturia in some individuals. So when you think about sleep related issues, to me, I think about sleep apnea. So the biggest cause of waking up to go to the bathroom I want to talk about is sleep apnea. And again, that Pressman study from 2006, Umhoff study in 2004, sleep apnea does trigger the release of a chemical called atrial natriuretic peptide, which increases urine production. Not to mention the fact that, again, that sort of that sympathetic arousal, that ANF, that atrial natriuretic peptide, gets increased in all kinds of sympathetic arousal sort of situations. To me, it's probably where, well, I was walking through the woods and all of a sudden a bear came. It was, right in front of me. It was coming towards me. And brother, it scared the piss out of me. That's probably where things like that have come from. That with fear, we have an urge to urinate. And so for a lot of individuals, these individuals wake up first and then they feel that urge to urinate and they have no idea that they're snoring, that they stop breathing, that they're suffocating, that they are increasing their release of atrial natriuretic peptide. They have no idea. It's just, I wake up a lot to go to the bathroom at night, and it's frustrating to me. In fact, we diagnose a lot of people with sleep apnea who never once mentioned breathing the whole time we are evaluating them. They came because they were waking up and going to the bathroom a lot. And that really gets to the first question that we tend to ask them, which is, are you going to the bathroom a lot in general, or are you just going to the bathroom at night? I think this is a really important question for anybody who says, I'm frustrated by the amount that I'm waking up. And it was a Bosch study in 2010, the prevalence and causes of nocturia, where they really tried to differentiate 24-hour urine production or 24-hour increased urine production from nocturnal only increased urinary production. And I think that's a very important question because generally speaking, and this is what I ask, are you going to the bathroom once an hour 24 hours a day? Or are you going to the bathroom once during your waking hours and 10 times at night? Because I think if it's once an hour, 24 hours a day, this is much more likely a urological problem. Your kidneys and your reader do not have, and bladder don't have a wristwatch. So if you feel like it's happening pretty routinely a lot through the day, which is no big deal because you're awake and you just take a lot of breaks from your work. After every patient you see, you go to the bathroom and it's still causing you problems at night. That's different from no, I literally go to the bathroom when I wake up in the morning. I go to work. I usually don't even go to the bathroom when I work. I might not even go to the bathroom until I get home. So it's just very much more frequent at night. That's much more likely a sleep problem or has its origins in something that is causing a problem with your sleep or fragmentation of your sleep. So besides sleep apnea, insomnia can certainly be a cause of that too. Imagine what is that sympathetic arousal like for a patient with insomnia? It's very high, very high. Oh gosh, it's 8 o'clock and I've got so much to do this week. I hope I can go to sleep. I hope my supplements and my uh, my THC gummy and my Ambien little piece that I bite off. Oh, I hope this works. And and then you wake up, oh, I'm awake. And so the anxiety, oh, I've got to go to the bathroom. There's no way I'm going to get back to sleep if I don't go to the bathroom. Oh, I have to go to the bathroom. So that frustration and fear can really, really drive insomnia. And then the insomnia and the anxiety and the increased arousal from that can really start to drive the bladder signals and the urge to urinate throughout the night. There are urological causes that we would see: overactive bladder, benign prostatic hypertrophy, people using diuretics and taking diuretics at night, and other causes of what we would call polyuria. Caffeine and alcohol at night, we've talked about as something that disturbs sleep. And this is one of the mechanisms. It's not the only mechanism, but this is one mechanism through which that certainly happens. I'm not a fan of cutting off fluids during the day. I think that is ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous for bedwetting, and we talked about that in that podcast episode. I also think it's ridiculous for waking up to go to the bathroom. It's often not effective. There was a Hashim and Abrams study. It was a British Journal of Urology article on bladder training showing fluid restriction rarely reduces nocturia meaningfully and may worsen daytime urgency, dehydration, and constipation. Better approach is maybe timing fluids rather than severe restrictions. So yeah, maybe not a tremendous amount right before you go to bed, but I think fluid restriction in general is not a long-term solution to the problem, if it's a problem at all. When you Some other causes, congestive heart failure, nephrotic syndrome, liver failure. Again, these are not things that we're going to see typically in a young population of people struggling with bladder issues, but they're certainly out there. Prostate issues, bladder issues, and then anxiety disorder. Urinary tract infection is another big one to pick up, particularly when it's relatively acute, accompanied by pain, etc. Although the pain is sort of a plus minus kind of thing there. So treatment and management, what do we do about it? Sleep studies. If it's, look, I'm going to the bathroom once during the day and a million times during the night, sleep studies are extremely valuable tools to look at. I tell patients all the time, look, you can get up and go to the bathroom during a sleep study. We're looking for anything that might be fragmenting or causing that sleep to be disturbed. So if it's sleep apnea, the treatment's going to be CPAP, oral appliance, some kind of surgery to keep the airway open so that the airway is not collapsing. You're not having the suffocation, which leads to the awakening, the arousal, and then the frequency. We talked about avoiding caffeine. I think it's really important. Timing fluids, don't cut off fluids entirely, but you're trying to stack them up a little bit, maybe earlier in the evening than later. Being careful about alcohol as well too. If people have edema, elevating the legs in the evening can be really helpful to mobilize that dependent edema. And that's where having adjustable beds can be very helpful. Um, Looking out for medications that might have diuretic effects, which we um, sometimes are prescribing and we're sort of unaware of it. I did want to make a comment about the normalization of it. I mean, it's okay to wake up and go to the bathroom. That doesn't mean that there's necessarily anything wrong with your sleep. But I always tell athletes, look, if you get up, go to the bathroom, back in bed, back to sleep. Yes, you had an awakening, you had an arousal from sleep, but it was one and it was brief and it was, not creating a lot of anxiety or stress with you. It was the Van Kerbroek article in 2002, The Standardization and Terminology of Nocturia, basically says, look, waking once to void isn't inherently pathological. It's only problematic if it's frequent and disruptive. It's like insomnia itself, what we always talk about. Hey, how long does it take you to fall asleep at night? I don't know, 2 hours. How do you feel about that? Well, I don't really care. Then it's not disruptive. That person's fine with it taking a little while for them to fall asleep. So the disruptive piece really has to be there. We didn't really touch upon nocturia in younger people and babies and little people. So we'll save that maybe for another episode sometime. So just some take home points from the episode. People wake up first and then they feel the need to urinate. So if you're struggling with your sleep, going after the nocturia is perfectly fine, but just understand there was probably something that was fragmenting your sleep first, and then you're feeling that urge to urinate. So to me, nocturia is a red flag for sleep apnea um, first, and then all other things are after that. It's sleep apnea until proven otherwise. But there's lots of things. Periodic limb movement disorder. You know, GERD, nocturnal seizures, all kinds of things could lead to that. And we're sort of talking about intrinsic problems here. There are extrinsic problems that could cause, you travel a lot and jet lag, or you stay at a noisy hotel, or your partner snores, or you've got a noisy dog. All of these things could fragment your sleep, make you need to wake up to go to the bathroom, and now you're blaming your bladder instead of your lovely dog. And CPAP can cure sleep apnea. If you've got sleep apnea, what are the things that people tell me all the time? The two biggest surprises people always have with treating their sleep apnea and CPAP is, wow, I don't wake up with headaches anymore, and wow, I never have to go to the bathroom during the night. Uh, I think that's it. So, nocturia, it's there, it's a problem. Talk to people about it. Don't be afraid of considering a sleep study when it comes to that evaluation. Um, we saw that a lot. Again, I'm not a urologist, I'm a neurologist, but this is one symptom where neurology and urology certainly collide. So, any experience you've had with nocturia, things that you found to be helpful, what you've discovered about your problem, let us know. DR Chris Winter Instagram, DR Chris Winter Twitter X. DR's Chris Winter, Blue Sky, and Threads. Check out our YouTube, Spotify page. We're on check out our YouTube page. We have a Spotify music playlist. We're on volume 4. We're going to put Cyndi Lauper on there. If you're interested in finding out more about these Spotify playlists, they are totally free. If you have Spotify, you can download them. There's information about them on the Sleep Unplugged webpage, which is relatively new. www.sleepunplugged.com. You can find all kinds of information about your sleep, including this month's Top 10 Threats to Your Sleep, compiled by none other than Kathy Goldstein. We want to thank her for her contributions to that last week. And that's it. Sleep well.